Hey, what is going on? It's Guy with Beard, Guns, and Gear. I'm going to do a little departure today. We're going to talk about modern sporting rifles in Canada, what our choices are, and kind of some cool things that are happening by certain gun makers, industries. I'm going to say to basically produce a sporting rifle for a Canadian public that does not fall into the dreaded AR category. So the one that I'm going to look at today is the WK-180. If you're Canadian, you're very familiar with this. If you're not Canadian, this might be your first look at it. So just from an appearance standpoint, you can kind of look at it and you go, yeah, it kind of looks like an AR-15 style rifle. And by the way, AR does not stand for assault rifle, it stands for Armalite. So it resembles something that was designed by Armalite back in the day. There's a couple of changes, and the reason for the changes is to get something that can be produced that is not going to fall into that restricted or prohibited category. So when they make firearms, basically they have to, it gets sent off, and then they basically say, okay, well, what category does this firearm fall into? And depending on certain aspects of it, it may fall into a unrestricted, restricted, or prohibited. So an AR used to be restricted. The only place you could shoot it was at the range. You had to have an authority to transport, just like any other restricted firearm. All your pistols fall into that category. So if you wanted to go shoot something at the range, that's what you had. But there was, one political party kind of lobbied to say, hey, listen, the AR-15 is, with a 5.56 or 223, is a very capable platform for hunting. We already have a magazine capacity here in Canada. Why can't we submit that? And they did submit that to House of Commons for vote, but of course it was voted down because, everybody reads the news and watches the news about, police shootings or I should say school shootings and stuff. So, it got shot down literally. Unfortunately, because I think the AR-15 is a fine firearm to hunt deer. If your local people do it all the time. If your local regulations allow that, but also for some varmint hunting as well. 223 and 5.56, contrary to popular belief, or at least belief by the anti-gun lobby, is a 5.56 and 223 is an extremely dangerous round that's designed to tumble, that causes mass carnage. And I've seen these videos, just like you guys probably have, and it's annoying that this fallacy just keeps getting propagated, and that's the reason basically why they shoot down, again, pun intended, anything to do with an AR style. But you can get this Kodiak 180, and this is a Gen 1, and I'll explain some of the differences. It looks the part, right? It is chambered in 5.56 NATO. It's got a 18.7 medium heavy barrel. So you can go out and shoot with this. You don't have to worry so much about the rifle or the barrel overheating. You can plink with it. As far as 223 and 5.56, it's very inaffordable as far as rounds go. Ammunition, you can buy it in bulk. And then you can see some of the kind of common features, which is why I like this firearm. I'm very familiar with an AR style. Again, I spent many years in the military, so when I pick it up, it just feels comfortable to me. I don't have to develop the muscle memory to learn a new firearm. And it's kind of funny, when I was thinking about getting an AR at one point, I put my hands on a Tavar, and it just felt so odd in my hands. I couldn't manipulate it. And then meanwhile, I'm closing my eyes and taking the takedown pin and stripping the upper and the lower, and I know exactly where the cocking hand, everything. Anyway, so this has got some of the kind of similar-ish controls on it. You can see the ambidextrous selector lever here on the left that you can go semi-automatic or safe, of course. So that's right where it should be. And as well, like, I'm not looking at it, but see, my finger just magically goes out there and finds magazine release. The magazines themselves are your typical AR-15 mags, capped at 5, unless it's designed for a pistol, in which case you can have 10 rounds if you have a pistol magazine. Again, check your local regulations as far as what hunting allowed. This has a 10-round capacity, but rifles have a 5-round capacity. It's tricky, right? But they will accept that. They'll even take your P-mags. As you can see, secure ejects, no problem at all. Some of the other common features, and you know, they did a pretty good job. I'll talk about the goods, okay? So they did a pretty good job. You've got full Picatinny rail, basically halfway up the barrel. The barrel looks a little odd with kind of this slant cut and then it's sticking out. So aesthetically, you either like it or you don't. I'm meh about it. The barrel shroud itself, I don't really like how they attach this. It's like with hex keys, and I tried to take it off at one point, and some of them are in there so tight I was really like afraid of snapping those nuts. So I think at some point, if I do need to take it off, I think I'm gonna have to put some penetrating in there. There must be Loctite or something. So I do like that aspect of it. The upper looks great, okay? The barrel, I have no doubt. Kodiak, again, Canadian company, they're doing a good job designing and putting out these firearms that can kind of fit something, and we can have something that's unrestricted. We can take to a gravel pit, we can shoot. As you can see, I've got a pretty cheap Sig Sauer Whiskey 3 on the top. Not the greatest scope, and I'll tell you why this scope is on there. Because it was right during peak COVID, and there was nothing. I mean, nothing available. So it's an okay scope. Clarity is pretty decent. I don't know if I would take it on a robust range day like I did the other day where, you know, we had snow and everything else. I think I'd have to watch that. So it's got an ambidextrous kind of cocking handle knob. And you can see, like, just by the wear that's happening on it, it does wear a little bit on the rails. Aircraft aluminum top and bottom. Military grade trigger. I love it when they say that. Like, there's no such thing as a good military trigger in their issued firearms. They're heavy, you know, they're clunky. They're made to shoot a firearm that's going to be issued to a soldier. So when they say, like, oh, this is got a military standard trigger, that's not something that appeals to me. This one is okay. It's okay. I'll leave it at that. As you can see, there's no buffer pad return spring located because it's got gas operated piston. So here's your two rods that go into the block, and then if you want to look at the block, you'll see something that looks very familiar, and that is the good old you know, bolt out of an AR-15. So that is where your hammer is going to strike, which is going to engage your firing pin. But everything else, like the block, is very well designed. It's very chunky. This firearm is fairly light. It comes in at 7¼ pounds without the scope and everything on it, of course. If you don't like the stock, and this one here has got a little play in it, it's Magpul. That's what it comes with, Magpul furniture. It's okay. I would change this. I haven't changed it yet, but I have another one that is far more secure and a much better version. Magpul sells furniture for everything, right? Like, you can get cheap ones, you can get really expensive ones. There's no QD slots on this, but you can see there's enough place for M-LOK. You could certainly put an M-LOK QD attachment to it, or you could just go with a single point sling here on the back of your Magpul, and you can see there's a couple of places where you could put that. So I like that aspect of it. And I mean, if you want to take something out in the pit and go shoot some 223, this is pretty well all we have. It's a semi-automatic. semi-automatic 5.56, 2.23, like I've said, and the availability of these right now is slim to none. I guess I had a little bit of foresight on this and grabbed one when you could get one. Now, because of the restriction, I should say the change in laws for the AR-15 went from restricted to prohibited, everybody was buying these up. How do you do 3-gun competitions if you don't have a semi-automatic 5.56? It's impossible. This is what everybody is using. The sporting industry, sports shooting industry, got hardest hit by this last change in Canadian laws, and nobody is even talking about this. They're talking about hunters, indigenous peoples, but nobody is talking about the sport shooters, and there is a lot of sport shooters in Canada. So they kind of said, well, I mean, we can use this, extremely limited in numbers because it's not a big company yet, and they're putting out as many as they can produce, but they're still also in the development stage. Like, they changed a lot. Apparently there's problems with the gas block. If you shoot a lot of rounds, you could end up getting some broken parts. Anyway, between cleanings. So they've redesigned it for the Gen 2, has some improvements, and they'll probably keep redesigning it because that's what happens. But that's why the AR-15 is such a great firearm right now, because it's had 60, 70 years in development. Anyway, I don't like the bottom part of this. It's very blocky and kind of chunky. I guess that's what they had to do when they were, the engineers took a look at it. The fit on it is pretty tight once you get the block and bolt and everything secured in there with the springs. There's not a lot of play, so it feels good that way. But if you go try to replace this pistol grip, you're going to end up with an issue because, as you know, most AR-15s have that kind of back saddle, you could call it that, or ducktail. Beaver tail. That's the word I was looking for. Beaver tail that kind of slopes up into here. So this is blocky, and it's going to be pretty hard to change that pistol grip. The pistol grip itself is very short. Like, my hands are not ginormous. They're pretty big, but they're not ginormous, and I have a hard time, like, my finger is kind of coming off the end of that. So I don't really like this part, but I've shot it. I've shot it successfully, 50, 100 meters. It zeroes very well, and you'll hit the target, and I think I was getting sub MOAs the last time I shot this, which was just a quick zero because I actually used this for deer hunting. A lot of people say, well, a 223 is not, big enough caliber or whatever. You can get some pretty decent. I mean, the standard is like 55 grain, but you can get 72, 74 grain, and especially with innovations as far as the hollow point and expanding cartridges, you have more than enough to take down a deer. I wouldn't hunt elk or moose with it, but it's more than enough to take down a deer. It's the placement of the shot that counts. So there it is. Like I said, and we'll just take a look at some of the parts. I mean, the quality of the machining is fantastic. You've got like these two push rods here that actuate the bolt, and the springs fit into the bolt. Like so. And this comes up against where the buffer pad and return spring would be, and it just basically pushes the bolt down. The only thing I don't like about it is to remove the bolt, you have to unscrew the caulking handle, which again is ambidextrous. And one thing that really annoys me, it's too open on the upper. I don't know how many times I've done this subconsciously. I go to close the dust cover, because that's where, I did enough push-ups for not having the dust cover closed, I guess, when I was in the Army. So, if you guys have one of these, let me know what you do with it. I'm assuming it's a plinker, it's a sports shooter kind of thing. If you don't have one, there's other companies that are starting to follow suit. I think the WK-180, and I could be wrong, but I think this one was like the first one to kind of enter into the modern sporting rifle, non-restricted for Canada. And then you have companies like BCL, Black Creek Labs, which is putting out the Siberian. That is a really cool looking firearm, very robust, very looks like, and I'm really hesitant in saying that, it looks like, gives the appearance, gives the feel of an AR, but because of the way that it's tooled and machine parts like this, it doesn't share enough similarities for the RCMP to designate it other than non-restricted. So it's great for us. We can have a firearm that we can go out and plank with and stuff. We don't have to worry about an ATT. We can just go out and fire at a gravel pit. This is a great firearm to introduce younger, smaller shooters into the world of shooting, because this is not an unrealistic recoil. There's hardly anything on it. You get a little bit more because you don't have that buffer pad return spring, but you also don't get that boing going off. And you guys who've shot the air a lot, you know what I'm talking about, that little boing in the butt. You don't feel, that doesn't sound right at all, but that's not what I meant to say, and you guys know what I mean to say. The spring and the buffer pad moving back and forth inside of the actual butt of the rifle, you don't hear that, you don't feel that. So that's kind of a cool aspect about it. The kids have shot it, they like shooting it, it's a fun firearm, and like I said, you can hunt with it, and I'm assuming that with the success of this firearm, there's going to be other companies that are going to follow suit. So keep your eyes open. That it's almost exciting to see what Canadian firearms makers are coming out with, but it's kind of sad at the same time because that's what they're forced to do. It is what it is, right? I've said that many a time before. And again, stripping and assembly of it, very simple. If you're familiar with an AR-15, you'll have no problem taking this apart. There's a spring clip on the front instead of just a push pin, but you can slide out of the way and remove the upper and lower. Not that you would have to, because you have very easy access to the chamber here. And you can see it's a chromoly barrel, it's chromed, it's made to last. I think this is a 1 in 8 twist. It's either 1 in 7, it can be 1 in 7, 1 in 8, or 1 in 9, depending on when this one was produced. Because they did change the twist a little bit just to kind of get a faster spinning bullet and create more stability, because nobody wants a tumbling round. You don't want that. It's inaccurate. All right, guys. Oh, and I put an angled front grip on, because I typically, every single time, I typically hunt with this thing, so I don't like the pistol grip for hunting. I like something like this that I can get my hand around. And again, the Whiskey 3, not a great scope, but the clarity is good. It's very simple, very basic, and it does the job. There you go, guys. Let me know what you think. And you, American, I'm curious to what you guys think about our Canadian firearms. Canada makes some pretty good stuff sometimes. I mean, we have some good companies out there. We make awesome maple syrup and beaver tails and hockey players. And now maybe we can add firearms to that list as well. All right, please go ahead, click like, subscribe. We're gonna have some more content. We're gonna be going through kind of a change process, because my oldest son, who does all the video editing, he's actually moving out of province. So we're trying to figure out how we can keep this going. He's really good at what he does and has learned a lot, and he enjoys doing it. So we want to try and keep him involved in it as much as possible. But depending on how this job goes, I may have to look for another video editor. So if you get some crappy videos in the next little while, it's probably because I've taken the helm. Anyway, go ahead, click like, subscribe. I'd love to hear the comments. Some of the other videos they might want to check out. SKS video, it's amazing, some of the comments, and amazing to me how many people are in the same boat. They love the SKS, and there's so much love for that very simple tool, Russian firearm. People seem to be really in love with those old Russian firearms. I love them. I love anything like World War II era and just after. I think it was a really cool time for firearms manufacturing. There's some other stuff that's going on right now, which is also cool, but it kind of doesn't have that same history attached to it yet. We'll see how this plays out. All right, and have a good day, have a good afternoon. Hope you're well, and we'll see you next time.